Here we are in conference championship week here on the Muni Lot Report. And it's our third episode of Around the League. And third episode, we have a third person here with us, a former co-host of mine at the Talk at Redline Radio, Tyler the Hoffy Hofstetter. Hoffy, say hello.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me on. It's about time that I actually got some time to be on, so it's good to be here.
All right, awesome. This is a brown and orange podcast, but yet we bring someone that waves the colors of black and gold, so we get a little different perspective here. So, Pally, what are your thoughts on the playoffs right now?
I think the playoffs are really going great so far. There's been some tremendous games throughout the entire playoffs so far, and I'm looking forward to some more good games coming up for the conference championships.
Yeah, and I would say that this past weekend was probably the best week of football I think anybody could ever ask for. Those were four incredible games. I mean, you couldn't, as just a football fan in general, you couldn't ask for anything more. And
right.
I mean, especially just rounding it off that week with that the Chiefs-Bills game was incredible. I thought obviously Bills would win it, as I think with most people thought they would win, but 13 seconds left, man. That's the number right there. It's crazy.
A conversation before the game with my dad, and I even told him, I said, I just got a feeling that this is going to be a really good game, and it turned out to be beyond that. It was just
exceed expectations.
It was like an instant classic, pretty much.
It was.
I saw a tweet where it's just like Chiefs and Bills should have like a 7-game series.
It was definitely a great weekend for football, like you guys said, and it was highlighted by that game. I mean, I think we can easily spend the whole hour talking about that game. Almost 300 yards within, it was about 200 yards, my bad. 200 yards within the last 2 minutes of the games and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That is just something. And, with the way Buffalo had to go down and score, it was like they were just barely getting in there. And then they leave 13 seconds on the clock with Kansas City with 2 timeouts. And, it was like, at most, they're going to get in range where they have to throw up a Hail Mary. Well, let it be known that they were able to get down into field goal range in 2 plays, which is just phenomenal football.
Travis Kelce being a stud as usual.
Right. And it was just something, it's kind of like when we say, well, you gave a minute to Tom Brady and 2 timeouts, that's your own fault. Now you can say you can give any amount of time to Patrick Mahomes, and if you leave him that time, he's going to burn you. So
the whole thing of it is, I think I was the only person when the Bills got that touchdown with 13 seconds left. I think I was the only person that still had confidence that the Chiefs were going to go down and at least give the field goal kicker a chance to tie the game. He has an unbelievably strong leg in Harrison Butker. I felt like if they could just get him in range, he'd have a chance. And that prevent defense just doesn't do a lot for teams. It doesn't prevent anything.
Oh, and it was one of those great moments in football where you got arguably the best offense in the league versus the best defense in the league. And the offense really took advantage at this time. I mean, I think it's very unfortunate how the game ended, that, the overtime rule, but, you'll say that on the losing side, but when you're on the winning side, it doesn't really matter.
Overtime rule sucks, though, I will say. It blows.
Yeah. I don't know.
I hope it gets changed.
I don't know how they can fix that.
The only thing and I had this conversation with somebody the other day. The only way that you could fix it is if you just played a whole nother quarter. These guys are capable of playing a whole nother quarter.
Right. I mean, you're
Yeah.
going to play the extra 15 minutes anyway. So, that's a pretty good point.
Yeah. I like that. I like that idea actually a lot more than, first person, like, score a touchdown. If you win that coin flip, defenses are absolutely exhausted. And especially if you're at home, you have the advantage anyway. So it's like,
if you don't want to play a whole nother quarter with the full amount of time, then, the NBA does that in overtime, but they do it at like over half of the time. They just play like a small little quarter. If you want to just play a 5-minute quarter, a 6-minute quarter,
I would say like a 10-minute quarter would be actually good.
That would give both teams a chance to just play it out until the end. And then if you're still tied after that, then you can go into maybe what college does or is doing now. You put the ball at the 4 or 5 yard line and just keep exchanging like 2-point conversions until someone wins.
Right. Yeah. Anything's better than this right now. But I thought it was an incredible game. A lot of upsets as well this past week. Obviously, Green Bay lost. Returning Super Bowl champs lost. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's a lot of great games, man. I was extremely happy. I watched them all.
A great weekend for kickers. I'll say that.
Yeah. That the Bengals game.
Yeah. 3 of the 4 games ended with a field goal to win the game, and that just makes you look and go, well, you got to open the pocketbook for some of these kickers. I mean, Robbie Gould hasn't missed a field goal in the postseason. 21 of 21. That is honestly unbelievable. Like he's got ice in his veins, just like Zach McPherson has ice in his veins when he went over to Joe Burrow right before he even walked out on the field and said, "Looks like we're going to the AFC Championship." I mean, come on, that's what I like to call cold-blooded.
Like he had a short field goal either. He had a 53-yard field goal.
Yeah, geez, like what a great week for football. Another great game. I've said all throughout the postseason, most of these games start as like very slow and it looks like they're going to be blowouts. And then the last quarter, the teams start coming around. And I mean, it was about the same for, the Rams, Tampa Bay game and San Francisco and Green Bay, where the Rams were holding a 27-3 lead for most of the game. And then Tom Brady did Tom Brady things. They pulled that team back. But honestly, I think the injuries were really caught up with Tampa Bay, where they didn't have as many weapons out there. He had to rely on Scotty Miller to make a couple plays. And then, Matt Stafford delivering an absolute dime to Cooper Kupp to get in the field goal range with 5 seconds left in the game. There's you can't ask a better play of your quarterback that late in the game. It was very similar to the play in Kansas City where, it was like, oh, they're playing for overtime at this point. Well, the Rams had other thoughts and they sent the GOAT home, and that could have been his last game as an NFL quarterback. Still don't know yet, but speaking of last games for quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers may have played his last game in Green Bay. 0-5 against San Francisco in the playoffs. Green Bay was the number 1 seed, and they choked. They were up 10-3 for
time and time again. Though it just keeps happening with them year after year. We've seen it. I have no explanation at this point. I predicted them to be in the Super Bowl this year. But hey.
Well, the problem in Green Bay, at least with their offense, is Aaron Rodgers hasn't really built another relationship with any other like receiver except for Devontae Adams. He's the only receiver that he can really trust to go to in times when he needs to complete a pass or get a touchdown or anything.
And like Alan Lazard is kind of their number two, but even like he isn't like a real number two receiver. And you can tell like Aaron looks down on him when he misses a catch or something out of his range. Like you can tell like he looks at him and he's just like, you really dropped that ball or something like that. I just feel like, yeah, no other receiver on the team is really a number two or someone that he can honestly trust. I mean, Tunyon's been out for the year. Vontez Scaling is just kind of he's their number three receiver. They're not really a number three receiver. So that just comes down to the organization. And I mean, I guess you can kind of say it, drafting Jordan Love in the first round when they desperately needed a receiver. If they had another receiver like that, that would be a true number two. I think it'd be a different story, but they haven't really given Aaron the proper targets and people to really throw it to on offense. And I think he's sick of it. I think he's out after this year. I really do.
I felt differently about that before the game, but now the way he walked off that field and you choked one away. I really have a hard time seeing them coming back from that one. But, we can say that Green Bay choked here, but let's not take,
see him in Pittsburgh next year.
No. Let's not take away from San Francisco. They were down most of the game. They didn't have much offense going, but this is what great teams do. They find ways to win games, whether they don't have any offense going or their defense is playing bad, you find a way to win. And San Francisco found a way to win. They had to call themselves back into the game, on three aspects of football. You got offense, defense, and special teams. And special teams won you the game along with the defense. That was phenomenal against that high-powered Green Bay offense. You had Talanoa Hufanga recovering that blocked punt for a touchdown that completely flipped the game on its head. And then you had Robbie the Cold Man Gold go out there and nail a field goal to win the game. And geez, I'm not going to count out San Francisco to get in the Super Bowl. But that being said, let's move on to the team from Ohio, the Boogles, a rival of both of our AFC North teams, pulling off the upset against the number one seed in Tennessee, coming down to the late field goal with McPherson, unfazed by the pressure, hitting a 53-yard field goal to win the game. I think we can agree what the hell was Mike Vrabel doing. He was an idiot. Coffee, I need you to
you and me were going crazy
evaluate this.
Yes, I just they had no sense of urgency with 1.5 to go in the game. They were handing the ball off. They weren't hurrying up to the line. They weren't using their timeouts. And then they ran what was it? Minute off the clock. It was down to 40 seconds. And then Tannehill finally decides to try to fit one in, and it just hits off his hands, and they get the interception. They were very fortunate to have enough time to get into field goal range, but it literally only took the one pass by Burrow, and it was a down.
Yeah, Burrow had to really throw a great ball to Jamar Chase, and it took one pass to get him into field goal range, and man, it did set him up. I don't think a game should have ended that way. If Tennessee was smart, they should have just ran the clock out. It almost seemed like they didn't know what they wanted to do. You either want to be urgent or you just want to run the clock out. And they just looked like they were very unsure
The most impressive thing is Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times, and he threw for 349 yards. No touchdowns, but he threw for 349 yards with 9 sacks. That is unheard of.
It's certainly something you want out of your franchise quarterback there, someone that can get put down and get right back and, keep going. In fact, over excel, I would say.
Yeah.
Um,
Imagine that man with an actual line. That's a dangerous team right there. That's a dynasty team, man. Keeping everyone together.
About going into the game against Kansas City, because I really believe that if they can protect Burrow, it's going to be a shootout. I think that both offenses could put up major points in that game. And Cincinnati may actually have a shot, but if they can't protect them, then it could possibly get ugly.
Do you know if Matthews is playing?
I the last I heard, he was still going through concussion protocol. I'm not sure.
Okay. I think that's a big factor. It really is, especially said deep downfield. When you got a guy like Jamar Chase, I mean, that adds a whole nother element when you need that stud player downfield, and you don't have him.
Once Matthew came out of the game, the Bills started to expose that middle of that field.
Yep,
and
big time.
They were picking apart. Josh Allen was picking apart that secondary.
Yeah, but if you have a deep slant to say to T. Higgins or Jamar Chase or even Tyler Boyd sneaky under there, I mean that's going to cause so many problems. So you really need him for this game. So that's going to be a huge loss if he's not in there. One of my big gripes about this past week with the Titans was Derrick Henry just clearly was not performing to Derrick Henry levels, but Foreman was running the ball way better. But every time he touched the ball, he hit that Derrick Henry was getting 1 or 2 yards on the same drive, and then Foreman broke out and ran for 30. And I'm like, just give the ball to him at this point. If you're going to make such a big focal point of just running the ball, give it to the guy that can actually run the ball at full speed right now and break through tackles. Because the second Derrick Henry got even touched, he was down at the ground. It was not normal him. He's clearly still hurt. And I think at that point, it's a detriment to your team. Give it to the guy that's fully healthy and that can run the ball and has been helping you out ever since, Henry went down. I think he looked a lot better. I think they could have done a lot more on the ground with him rather than Derrick Henry getting the touches. So that's my point on it. What are you guys feeling about this week coming up?
Well, let me run through the schedule here real quick for this week. We got 2 left. You got the 3:00 time slot, Cincinnati at Kansas City. Kansas City's at -7 as the favorites. Then at 6:30, you got San Francisco and Los Angeles playing back that NFC West rivalry for the third time. And the Rams are 3.5 favorites. I say we start with the Kansas City game, Kansas City, Cincinnati, since we're already on top of it. I think the biggest point to look at here is what Kansas City was able to do against a top-ranked defense. Surely Cincinnati has a great front four, great linebacker core, but they're towards the bottom of the league against the pass. And I think they're really going to have a hard time against this Kansas City pass offense. I know Cincinnati was able to get the best of them later on in the regular season.
Barely, though.
I think this is a different Kansas City team. They're playing at home. They're playing great ball. Patty Mahomes is back to that level where we haven't seen him at that point all season. So I'm really having a hard time seeing Cincinnati pulling this one out. And I think they're I'm not going to say luck because they're not lucky. They've been playing really good. I just think their magic's going to run out here pretty soon. And with the inability to protect Joe Burrow, I just don't think he's going to be able to go out there again against this Kansas City pass rush that's found new life with Chris Jones coming back, Frank Clark, and the new addition, Melvin Ingram, that's been, great for that Kansas City defense. So for me, going score-wise, I'm going to have to go Kansas City 34 and Cincinnati 21. Kansas City makes their way back to their third Super Bowl.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way currently. I think Matthews is going to be a big factor in this game, but I still think it's going to turn into a shootout, high-scoring game. But I just think how fast the Chiefs are on offense. I think if you fall a touchdown behind or you have to punt the ball just once, I think they could really take advantage of that. So, yeah, I'm going to go Kansas City here as well. Now, I said I think it could go the opposite way, like kind of like how it was this past, in the regular season where it was only decided by a field goal. But I'm gonna give it a little bit more here. But I'm gonna say 42-34. But I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. But yeah, I think Kansas City pulls it off.
I mean, going back to what I said earlier, it's going to all be a matter of Cincinnati can protect Joe Burrow, and if they give him time to throw, then it's going to be a very high scoring game. But the way that they performed against Tennessee, given that Tennessee has a good offensive, defensive line, I just don't know what to make of it. I'm taking the Chiefs to win, but the score is going to be very hard to choose depending on if Joe Burrow has time to throw to his receivers and if they can block for Joe Mixon too. Joe Mixon had an awful game against the Titans, had no room to run. He was pretty much on the ground before he even got the ball. So if they can establish the run early and he can get some passes off, then I still think the Chiefs are going to win. I'm going to go Chiefs 37 and the Bengals 24.
All right. That's a good point about Joe Mixon. He had a tough outing against the Titans, but the Titans are one of the better teams against the run, where Kansas City's one of those teams that has struggled against the run. I feel like Josh Allen was able to really expose that offense by taking the ball in his hands. But Buffalo, granted, Singletary has had a great past 5 games, but I don't think you're able to give him the ball like you would be able to give to Mixon, 30 times a game. And I think Mixon could expose his Kansas City defense on the ground. I don't know how much of a difference it would make score-wise. I mean, at least it'll help you control the game a little bit. The more you are able to establish a run, the more you can stay on the field. And when you stay on the field, you keep Patty Mahomes off the field. And that's exactly what you need to do to beat that Kansas City team.
Yeah. And is going to be a big factor for them. If they can control the ball, time of possession, and just keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands as long as possible, then they'll have a lot better of a shot to win. I don't know how feasible it is for them to beat them, but we're going to see.
Yeah, I always feel like offenses have a little bit more depth and a little bit more rotational pieces than defenses. I always feel like once they get tired and they run out of people, they run out of people pretty quickly. And if they're on the field most of the game, they fall apart pretty quickly. So yeah, if you keep Mahomes off and their defense on, and they just get tired, and you got a pretty good complementary football between running and passing the ball, so I think it could be a different story. But I'm still going to the Chiefs, but it really depends on how this offense shows up.
All right. Moving on to our late game at 6:30. San Francisco and LA has been a great games throughout the season. San Francisco was able to pull one out in their last meeting where they had to, find their way back just to even get into the playoffs. If they were going to lose that game, the Saints were going to get in, and they really got in by the hair of their chinny chin chin. And I hate that people are talking down on Jimmy G. He has one of the better winning percentages in the league. I feel that the San Francisco team is very much overlooked. They were able to get hot in the middle of the season, and I think they reeled off about 5 or 6 wins in a row. And they've had to win tight games. They've been to the Super Bowl where the Rams haven't been to the Super Bowl with this particular team. I think the 49ers, being 2 years out of their last Super Bowl appearance, are a way better team than they were. They have a more established running back in Elijah Mitchell. You have George Kittle, that's still one of the better tight ends in the league. Deebo Samuel, you could easily put him in the top 5 for receivers. He could do it all for you. And then you had Brandon Ayuk and Jawan Jennings, who's been a unsung hero of this San Francisco offense. That he's their big time player. He comes in clutch when they need him. And what more can you say about their defense? I think they're back on the status where they were a couple years ago. Their secondary is not exactly where it used to be, but that front 7 really does damage against these great teams. And where the Rams are, their offensive line, they could take a lot of damage. I see this game being really tight. I think this might be the game that Matty Stafford might slip up. And I think Jimmy G's experience in the playoffs, the San Francisco team is going to be feeling good on Sunday. And I'm going to have to go with the Niners. They're going to get their rematch against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and they're going to pull off a tight win, 21-17.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with you actually here. I think the Rams are a really good team, but I also feel. Hold on. Sorry. Yeah, but I think this team, the 49ers is very put together. There's not many holes inside this offense or defense. And the one thing with the Rams, I gotta say, is that like sometimes they're really hot, sometimes they're just not. You've seen it a handful of times. You've seen Stafford throw multiple picks a game. No one's really clicking. I think Cam Akers being back was a big deal last week, in my opinion. I think he's really just kind of like added an extra element to it. Same thing with Odell Beckham. But I think Deebo Samuel is also just such an explosive, unique player. Where I mean, they line him up as a running back, and he just runs for touchdowns. It's incredible. So I think Jimmy just being relatively consistent. He hasn't thrown for 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. He might throw for a touchdown, but he's not going to really throw that interception or that constant dumb decision. He just kind of like manages the game, and that's completely fine. That's all they really need at this point is get it in the hands of their playmakers and to just do what you do to get wins. And at the end of the day, that's all you need to do is just win this game. And I think this offense is totally capable of doing that. And Nick Bosa is going to be charging at you nonstop. So Matt Stafford's going to be running for his life, in my opinion. So I'm going to see how that goes down. But on the other side, I mean, Von Miller and Von Miller's a stud, man. Those guys up front are just crazy. I'm blanking on his name right now. Aaron Donald. Oh my god, I was punch myself for that. Aaron Donald was absolutely wrecking that game last week. I mean, he's probably the best defensive player in the entire NFL.
I'd argue he's the best player in the NFL, all in all.
I mean, that's definitely a conversation, right? And last week you saw that he made such just a big, as he usually does. But I mean, he just really just is a game changer. And having Von Miller is a nice late season pickup has really just made any offense of line really just have 2 factors to really take account for. So I'm gonna go 49ers here though, although I think that they're gonna have some struggles just dealing with that defense. But I'm gonna go 24-21 49ers.
not so fast. A little homage to Lee Corso. I'm actually, I think this is going to be a very tight ball game, but I also believe that this is the game that Matthew Stafford has been dreaming of his whole career after playing with the Lions, unfortunately, for the majority of his career. And he's got the supporting cast around him. He's got, in my opinion, the best receiver in the game of football, along with Van Jefferson, Odell Beckham. Sorry to Browns fans. And then he has a great running back in Austin Eckler. I was a little concerned in Tampa.
Austin Eckler.
What's that?
It's for the Chargers, bub.
Wrong LA.
And then they do have an unbelievable defense, and I just think that it's going to be a tight ball game. But I think the Rams are going to squeak by them. I'm going to say it's going to be 27-24. I think they're going to win by a field goal, and I just think that Matthew Stafford, with all the mistakes and the interceptions he's thrown throughout the year, I think he's going to finally make that play that he has to get his team to the Super Bowl. I just think that they have too much talent to not get to the Super Bowl.
Well, so we're basically sold on Kansas City as a team here, representing the AFC, and then let's say 2-1 San Francisco over the Rams. But I really think that one could go either way.
I think that's going to be a really good ball game.
Yeah. But we just want to say, thank you guys for watching. This is a great first episode for our new co-host here, and Tyler Hofstetter. Welcome to the show, buddy. We got a lot more work to do. A couple more videos to put up this week for Around the League. And, like I say every single week, go Browns.